The Google headquarters in Mountain View, California was buzzing with its usual energy. Brilliant minds from around the world filled the massive open-plan office, working on projects that would shape the future of technology. Among them was Carlos Reyes, a newly hired software engineer from Manila, Philippines. Carlos had worked incredibly hard to get here. He graduated top of his class from the University of the Philippines, earned his master's degree in computer science, and spent years perfecting his coding skills. When Google offered him a position, it felt like a dream come true. He packed his life into 2 suitcases and flew halfway across the world for this opportunity. His first day started with a team meeting. Carlos was assigned to a high-priority project under team lead Derek Chen, an accomplished engineer who had been with Google for 8 years. The team consisted of 6 engineers, all highly educated, all confident in their abilities. Carlos introduced himself nervously, his Filipino accent noticeable as he spoke. "Hello everyone, I'm Carlos Reyes from Manila. I'm very excited to be working with all of you on this project. I hope we can collaborate well together." There was a moment of polite silence. Then Derek spoke up with a slight smirk. "Manila, huh? Well, Carlos, communication is really important here at Google. We need to make sure everyone can understand each other clearly. Your accent is quite thick. Maybe you should work on that." A few team members chuckled uncomfortably. Carlos felt his face flush with embarrassment, but he nodded politely. "Yes, sir. I will do my best." Over the following weeks, Carlos threw himself into his work. He arrived early, stayed late, and produced clean, efficient code. But Derek continued to make comments about his accent during meetings.
Oh, by isolating the recursive function here. Could you speak up, Carlos? Can't quite hear you back here.
"Carlos, can you repeat that? I can't understand what you're saying." Or maybe email that instead so we can actually understand it. The other team members started following Derek's lead. During code reviews, they would interrupt Carlos mid-sentence. "Sorry, what? Can you say that again?" Even when Carlos explained complex algorithms perfectly, they acted like his accent made him incomprehensible. Carlos felt increasingly isolated. He ate lunch alone. He stopped volunteering ideas in meetings. The brilliant engineer who once topped his class now felt small and invisible. But late at night, when the office was quiet, Carlos continued working on something else, something Derek and the team knew nothing about. 3 months into his job at Google, something unexpected happened. The company's main search algorithm started experiencing critical errors. Pages were loading slowly, search results were becoming inaccurate, and users were complaining worldwide. It was a crisis that threatened Google's reputation. Derek's team was given 48 hours to identify and fix the problem. They worked around the clock, but nothing seemed to work. Derek grew increasingly frustrated, snapping at team members and blaming everyone except himself. The pressure from upper management was intense. Carlos noticed something the others missed. Late one night, while everyone else had gone home exhausted, he studied the error logs carefully. He recognized a pattern, a subtle flaw in how the algorithm processed certain data queries. It was the kind of problem that required not just technical knowledge, but creative problem-solving and deep understanding of system architecture. Carlos spent the entire night developing a solution. He wrote new code, tested it thoroughly, and documented everything. By morning, he had a complete fix ready. But there was a problem. Would anyone even listen to him? The guy with the thick accent, who everyone treated like he was incompetent? When the team gathered for their emergency morning meeting, Derek looked exhausted and defeated. "We're running out of time," he announced grimly. "If we don't fix this in the next 12 hours, heads are going to roll." "Does anyone have anything? Anything at all?" The room was silent. Team members looked at each other nervously. Then Carlos raised his hand slowly. "I think I found the problem," he said quietly. Derek barely glanced at him. "Carlos, we don't have time for guesses. We need actual solutions." "It's not a guess," Carlos said, his voice stronger now. "I identified the exact line of code causing the cascade failure. I've already written a patch and tested it on a mirror environment. It works." The room went completely quiet. Derek stared at him, skepticism clear on his face. You're saying you solved in one night what 6 senior engineers couldn't solve in 3 days? Carlos nodded calmly. He opened his laptop and projected his solution onto the large screen. The code was elegant, efficient, and clearly explained. As he walked through his logic, something changed in the room. Team members leaned forward, their expressions shifting from doubt to genuine interest. Even Derek's skepticism began to crack. "This is actually brilliant," whispered one engineer. Carlos finished his presentation and looked at Derek directly. "Would you like me to implement it? Or would you prefer someone else review it first?" Derek had no choice. Carlos's solution was implemented immediately, and within hours, Google's search algorithm was running perfectly again. The crisis was averted. Upper management was impressed, and they wanted to know who had saved the day. When Derek presented the fix in the executive meeting, he could have taken credit. Everyone expected him to. But something had changed in him. He looked at the executives and said, "Actually, this wasn't my solution. Carlos Reyes, one of our engineers, identified and fixed the problem when none of us could." Carlos was called into the executive meeting. He explained his approach, answered their technical questions with clarity and confidence, and for the first time since joining Google, people truly listened to him, not despite his accent, but because of his brilliance. The next week, there was an announcement. Google was restructuring the team, and they needed a new team lead. Derek was being promoted to a different department, and the new team lead would be Carlos Reyes. On Carlos's first day as team lead, the same engineers who had mocked his accent now sat in the meeting room, waiting nervously. Carlos stood at the head of the table and smiled warmly. He could have been cold. He could have been vengeful, but that wasn't who he was. "I know the last few months have been difficult," Carlos began, "but I believe we can build something better here. A team where everyone's ideas are valued, where we judge contributions by merit, not by how someone speaks. Where we lift each other up instead of tearing each other down." One by one, his team members nodded. Some looked ashamed, others looked relieved. One engineer raised his hand. "Carlos, I owe you an apology, we all do. The way we treated you was wrong." Carlos nodded graciously. "Thank you. Let's move forward together." As the meeting ended, Derek stopped by Carlos's new office. "You deserved this," Derek said quietly. "I was wrong about you. About a lot of things." Carlos extended his hand. "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do next." Derek shook his hand, and for the first time, there was genuine respect between them. That evening, Carlos video called his family back in Manila. His mother cried happy tears. His father beamed with pride. They had always believed in him, even when others didn't. Carlos looked out at the Google campus, the California sunset painting everything gold. He had come so far, and this was just the beginning.